Welcome to episode number 4, Show Me Sports Legacies. We're happy tonight to talk about growing the game of baseball. We've got an interview with Coach Donnie Hillerman at North Central Missouri College. And I want to welcome to our panel tonight Chris Ockenfels, former Trenton coach and athletic director turned podcaster. Welcome, Chris. And Brian Upton, who joins us for the first time. Brian is a former women's basketball coach at Southwest Livingston County R1 High and Trenton High School. Welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you very much. I have enjoyed listening to your guys' podcast, and I look forward to participating.
And it's always great to be back, Jeff. Really appreciate you having us and ready to talk some baseball.
We've torn ourselves away from the Olympics long enough to do this taping, and it's been quite a spectacle. Unless you've been in a cave the last few years, you know about the explosion of women's sports, and this Olympics really represents that, with just as many women athletes in the Olympics this year as male athletes.
It's been a great show. The women have really put on a spectacle. They are gaining popularity. I think it goes back to the thought that the WNBA with the superstars gained a lot of momentum. I think some of that's carried into the Olympics as far as a viewership standpoint, and they perform. There's been so many great performances from gymnastics to swimming to track and field. The women take a backseat to no one in sports these days.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to step forward to baseball because it's still baseball season in northern Missouri. The Royals are entering the dog days of August. They're in a tight battle for probably the last wild card spot, reasonably. What one move did they make at the trading deadline that you think might help them stay in the race?
I think they attempted to shore up their bullpen, which is going to be critical. I think we saw that a little bit last night in the game. Once everybody gets acclimated to their roles, whatever that is, and I think they're going to have to rethink some of their roles, especially at the back end. We're never going to get to HDH again, but we need to have some diet version of that we feel comfortable with. When we get into the 7th, 8th, 9th innings, that we're comfortable bringing somebody in to put out a fire. We got a really tough schedule coming up the last 50 games of the year, and we're going to have some really high-end performances out of our bullpen because I think our starting pitching is plenty good enough to get us 6. We're just going to have to figure out how to put those pieces together because I think we've got some talented arms out there.
Yeah, I agree with it, with the bullpen. The DeYoung addition it's always good to have bats off the bench and righty-lefty matchups these days. So that was a good addition. He's got some pop. He's got 18 or 19 home runs, hit one the other night to give us the lead that our bullpen gave up. I agree with Brian. The relief pitching is the big question mark. Will they go with set roles 7, 8, 9, or will they go with the best in the highest leverage situation? A lot of managers these days have gone away from my closer is only the 9th inning, and they'll bring in their best reliever in the 7th or 8th when maybe the opposing team's 3, 4, 5 are coming up and they've got to put out that fire. And I don't think that's been established yet for the Royals with this new bunch. So there's some pieces there, but if you ask me right now, who is the closer? I'm not sure I could give you a definitive answer.
I really appreciate that J.J. Picola didn't sell the farm, didn't go all out, just tried to supplement and be smart about this and didn't really get the farm club. So I appreciate that they did something, but I appreciate that they didn't see this as this is our one last window because we're just at the beginning of the Bobby Witt era.
Well, I agree, and I think the bullpen can look drastically different if we happen to get to the postseason because you're only going to have 3 starters. You got Alex March in the minor leagues that's got a wildly crazy good arm. Brady Singer or Michael Walker or is it Lorenz that they signed? All those guys are capable of going and throwing a good inning out of the bullpen. I think we can lengthen our bullpen if we can get to the postseason with what we've got.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a mix and match time, and they've got 50 games to figure it out. If they get some momentum and get the pieces where they want them in the bullpen, it's a scary team. If you get to the postseason, a lot of times it's about the starting pitchers. Do you have a 1-2 or a 1-2-3 combo? Because if you do, it doesn't matter if you're a wild card or division winner. All that goes out the window. Who are your first 2 starters? And if you throw out Lugo and Reagans for the Royals, that's a pretty tough combo.
Our next segment talks about some local baseball here in North Missouri, and later we'll have a short piece on a trip to Chiefs training camp. Now, I spoke with Donnie Hillerman, NCMC men's head baseball coach for the past 18 years, just a day after North Central Missouri College hosted a baseball clinic with Mike Arbuckle and the Royals Amateur Development Program. It was in late June, Burley Grimes, really hot day. Was glad to see the new Russ Derry Practice Facility. I was glad to be in the Russ Derry Practice Facility that day because I think it was 103 degrees actual temperature. So Donnie talked about the effect of that facility and the need to grow the game of baseball through developing players, fans, and young men in baseball. We're here with head coach of the men's baseball team at North Central Missouri College, Donnie Hillerman, longtime coach here. Just yesterday hosted a clinic for high school baseball players in the area in conjunction with the Royals Amateur Development Program. Fill us in on that, what that clinic was about, and that relationship with the Royals.
The clinic we held yesterday was designed for high school players. Mike and I, over the years, have tried to do take a lot of different angles. Our end goal is to improve baseball, the quality of the instruction that the kids are getting, and really grow the interest, because I remember whenever I was in high school age playing, and that's been 30 plus years ago, and playing in this area because I was playing at Moberly, but the Legion programs, we would have crowds of 2,000 or 3,000 people at our postseason tournaments and larger sometimes. And I know the people here in the area talk about their Little League programs in a small town like this would have 8 or 10 teams of one age level. So the general interest has kind of waned over the years, and we just want to bring that back as best we can, be ambassadors to the game, but also do it in a way that we think the kids are getting quality instruction. And I think for Mike and I both, we just really want to see the game continue. We'd love to grow the game. I think over the years it's kind of gone the wrong direction. We want to stem that off and maybe get it moving in the right direction. We've offered a lot of camps over the years, different levels, and we've done it with different approaches where we've approached working with the kids. We've done coaches clinics. And this was kind of a combination. We had the students as well as the coaches. We wanted to give the kids something, but we also wanted the coaches there to kind of hear some things and then reinforce what we're doing. Because we feel like, they can come in for a day and there's only so much that's going to be absorbed. But if you can get the coaches there, they may pick up a little bit more. They'll reinforce it through their practices. I thought we might get a little more mileage out of that. That's kind of the thought that Mike and I had.
Get some continuity and kind of train the trainer.
For sure.
Thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Talk about, baseball is a great sport. I've loved it my whole life, whether it's at the pro level and getting access to watching the Royals games. There's just a lot of things that seem to not go baseball's way. It gets overtaken by football and basketball and some other sports. And it just seems like it's there for improvement.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm kind of old school mentality. I grew up and the entire life has been involved with the game in a lot of different ways and over the years. So I love the game and I want to see the game grow. I think it's the best game because I think you have a lot of individual moments and performances. One-on-one, the pitcher versus the hitters, but I think it's always done in a team atmosphere with a team concept. I think it's very much like life. I think football kind of resembles war a little bit. I think team sports involve team aspect, and all of them do have their moments for individual performance, but I feel like none of them really kind of work like baseball does. Baseball is such a game of failure, and life can be that way. There's a lot of good life lessons to be learned from the game. Right behind you, there's a quote from Ted Williams that, it's the only field of endeavor, essentially paraphrasing, where a good performer is successful 3 times out of 10, 300 batting average. I tell kids, so much like life, you can go out there in life and you can never really control everything. You can hit 4 line drives and be over, and you can have 2 bloops, a bleeder, and a little duck fart that falls, and you got 4 hits on a day when you really didn't have your best performances. And the same thing happens in life. You kind of learned some of the best life lessons of any sport. One of the reasons why I love it so much, and I think it's such a value for kids to be involved with.
Good stuff in there. So what are some of the impediments that you see? I think he's right about what baseball used to mean to people and how it unified communities. And we still see that with Little League World Series occasionally, but local baseball seems to kind of take the back seat. Kids aren't that engaged. Parents maybe aren't that engaged. What do you think's happening there?
Well, I think part of it is how society's evolved with technology. I think it's such a timeless game that early in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, when it was really going, it was something that you went out and played with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family. You listened to the games on the radio. You had the team from your town. You would go watch them play. And as we've evolved into this Folgers instant coffee society of I need, and I need it right now, the other sports provide that instant gratification more than baseball in my mind. The football, basketball, it's instant, it's on your iPad, it's on your phone, and baseball's kind of taken a back seat, so baseball's trying to catch up with that. And I think to do that, you've got to make your product available to kids so they get interested. And I think baseball got passed up by football and basketball, who had great plans for that through social media and television markets. But baseball's coming back in that. I think they've got a ways to go. Besides the cost and the travel and the equipment, I think the technology part has played a big factor in that.
I agree. I mean, growing up, I grew up in Independence, so around the city, and we had multiple baseball teams in our neighborhood, and that's what we did. And if we didn't have enough kids to play 9-on-9, we made up rules so that we could have a game. I think through the popularity of some of the other sports, like Chris said, where it's easy to find. My son and daughter come over to our house to watch the Royals game because for whatever reason the cable TV, and I couldn't even tell you what cable TV we have. We actually have Bally Sports, so we get to see every Royals game, and they can't believe it because they've subscribed to all these different subscriptions, and they can't find it. My dad can't find it, and he used to watch. He would watch every game if it was on. He's got all kinds of AT&T Universe, whatever. No baseball. So I think baseball is trying to address that. I think that's part of the problem with our kids is they don't have access to it as easy as we did when we were kids. And I didn't watch Royals games, but I listened to every one of them to the point where I got in trouble at night because they were on the West Coast. And I'd have my transistor radio, and my mom was yelling at me to go to sleep. So I think that's part of it, and it is different. You just think about all the great baseball players, but football players and basketball players are all the ones that are in the ads selling whatever. You just don't see Bobby Witt Jr. on a national ad. You see Patrick Mahomes everywhere. It's that familiarity with the sport as the kids are growing up. And us old guys, we know it. We've lived it and seen it and whatever, but I think we got a generation coming through that don't understand how special baseball is.
Yes, it's timeless, and if you watch the movies that kind of portray that, Field of Dreams comes to mind, For Love of the Game, about the timeless game, about being passed on from generation to generation. I think we've lost a little of that because I think the NBA and the NFL marketed individual superstars. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning. Baseball didn't. They kept marketing the team and didn't get into the core of what kids are looking for, and that's something to follow, something to root for. It's coming. I think it's coming back because they have to, right, to compete with the other major sports.
Now, what is it about baseball slang? I mean, baseball has its own kind of language. It has a lot of those unwritten rules that we talk about in sports. I don't know what, in fact, a duck fart really is. There's a lot of other things out there. What's your favorite baseball slang?
Well, I've heard of it as duck snort. My coach used to say that's a duck snort when it was a hit. He always had a line for everything. A little bingo meant get a hit. Just need a little bingo here. Hit a rope was one of my favorites. Hit a line drive. Hit something straight like a rope and not a lollipop. Of course, can of corn is one of the all-time greats. I still say that if we're watching TV, watching the Royals in the evening and a pop fly goes up, first thing in my mouth is up, can of corn. Love that one. How about you, Brian?
My son was involved in baseball all the way through and played a little bit in junior college. So I coached a lot all the way up till he got to American Legion age. Especially with kids, the stuff that comes off the bench is really quite remarkable at times. Some of those, would make an adult blush at times, but the stuff like a walk's as good as a hit, or a bloop and a blast, or, that kind of stuff, it's fun because that makes it part of baseball. My son was a good baseball player. He wasn't a great baseball player, but he was a baseball player. He wanted to be part of that team, or a guy's up to hit. Seen better swings on a gate. They'd come up with stuff. I had a buddy in college that played baseball, and his nickname was E6. Okay, yeah. And he really wasn't that bad of a fielder, but that became his nickname. I mean, no matter where we were at, other baseball players were calling him E6. There's a lot of that camaraderie, and there's a lot of that verbiage that kind of makes baseball unique, I think.
With Rex Hudler as our color announcer,
oh yeah,
you get a lot of that stuff. And I can't think of the 2014 Royals, 2015 Royals without thinking of booty knock, because there were so many times Hosmer stuck his butt the wrong way and reached out with the bat and flipped one out into right center field. And they just got good at that. It was that keep the line moving stuff. Booty knock, when the guy was completely fooled by the pitch, but still got a hit.
Salvador Perez has maybe the most famous one of those in the AL wildcard game in 2014.
Absolutely. So in this next segment, Donnie describes himself as old school, and we ask him about NIL, kids moving around a lot, and some of the changes in the game that way. What are the particular issues, and are they changing as a junior college coach? Because your team's turning over a lot every year, and there's probably a lot of folks that are looking for a sweeter deal over their horizon somewhere or hoping to go pro. There's just a lot of things going on. What are you dealing with mostly these days?
There are a lot of things happening baseball collegiately and in collegiate sports in general with the NIL stuff. There's opportunities and monies to be had. The portal, every athlete feels like they're a professional a free agent every year. They're always looking for the next, like you said, the next thing over the horizon, the next great deal. This is the first year I really feel like I was recruiting some of my players back into our program after their freshman year. And I think that's something that's going to become the norm, unfortunately. Keeping your word and just being, I don't know, making commitments and things like that. I think what's happening is kids just are less inclined to do that. They're not rewarded necessarily for being loyal. Some people say, well, that's how it is. The schools and the coaches weren't loyal to the kids before, but I think the good schools and the good coaches always have been. You know what I mean? I think that, especially at our level. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of principles that are being lost, and it's kind of sad, just from a morality standpoint, even a little bit, to be a person who says what they mean and means what they say and follows through. Yeah, essentially. So, yeah.
You were talking about Mike, of course, Mike Arbuckle, who has a 46-year history of scouting and development of players, a couple World Series rings with the Phillies and with the Royals. And then I think back also to folks like Whitey Herzog or Dayton Moore has this kind of history of being flat out honest with people. If you can't do this, you don't have the skill, you have to tell the player. They may not like it, their parent may not like it, but it's the only way to deal with them is to be straight.
For sure. In fact, I really think that probably that's what our program here prides itself in, what we preach to the kids, because we're definitely wanting to develop players, but we're still developing men and citizens, and all these principles apply to life. The majority of them don't go on to play professional baseball, that they can still apply these lessons to life and help them be successful and quality people and good parents and contributors to our society. So those are all the important things that we enforce and reiterate here and encourage and reward. So yeah, that's kind of what it's all about. Kind of mentioned the old school mentality that I have, how things are kind of going into the college side with the NILs and the portal is nationally. I think overall the game of baseball is, like you said, the speed of the game. So those things are, and there's some rule changes going on. I'm, like I said, kind of old school because I love the game. I think it offers so many things. If anything else, it offers a little bit of patience too. You know, everything's now got to be drilled down into just instant gratification. I think it's a thinker's game. I think there's a lot of athleticism and a lot of beauty in the play of the game and the athletic plays and things that are made. There's also a lot to be said for the holding a runner on base and the cat and mouse game with pickoff plays and the guys trying to steal bases and things like that. Now they're taking it with clock. They're taking some of that away. Just a lot of the strategy is being taken out of it because it does slow the game down, but I think that's also part of the beauty of the game. And I feel like they're trying to do things to woo in this casual fan, and they should be rewarding their true blue fans that love the game as it is and getting them to kind of help promote that to the youth.
So focusing on these comments about baseball, let's talk about our opinion of recent changes in Major League Baseball and if these things are good overall for the game.
Well, I can tell you that when my kids were little, I wish there was a pitch clock.
Yeah.
Because going to Royals games was hard to keep their attention for a long period of time. I think it would have been easier with a 2.5-hour game as opposed to 3-hour plus. But as an adult going to a game, I think the beauty of baseball is it's untimed. You're there until we decide a winner. Now, the pitch clock has not affected me negatively. I've always coached a lot of baseball when my son was going through baseball. And when it came to pitching, it was more about fundamentals and techniques at a young age, but it was also about pace. It was about getting the ball, deciding what you're going to do, and then do it. Don't be thinking about it too much. Don't be worried about the runner so much that you forget the most important thing is to throw strike one, that kind of stuff.
You're a Denny Matthews disciple.
Yeah.
He hates pitchers that mess around on the mound.
Exactly. I kind of like the pitch clock okay. And you guys remember Mike Hargrove, the human rain delay. I mean, that guy would show up, and he was like a minute and a half before he'd get into the batter's box. He had adjusted every piece of clothing on his bodies and batting glove twice and his helmet 3 times. I'm okay with an increased pace of play. I think it does keep it a little bit more exciting. I'm kind of with Donnie on the when the runners are on base. I kind of like them. I'm a fan of Willie Wilson and all those guys that create a little havoc on the base paths, and now you kind of lose that.
I will circle back to the rule and give you a little insight into one and then go back to it. I think the K zone has caused a major problem for Major League Baseball. The minute they started to put the strike zone up on the HD televisions for everyone to see, everybody questions the umpires, and we can see in real time when umpires miss a call. And just recently in the Royals, twice in the last 2 weeks, a game late, one in the 9th, one in the 8th inning, has been altered because an umpire missed a clear strike 3 in the K zone. So that now I'm going to circle back and say I wish the rule change would come in, which they're testing in the minors right now, which is the quick robot K for the batter, and they get one time in at bat, they can look back, tap their helmet, K zone will come up, and if the umpire missed it, they'll correct it right then. Takes about 3 seconds to do, and then you keep playing. I wish that would happen, because so many people are frustrated right now. Again, back to technology, that everybody knows where the strike zone is. And look what happened to Angel Hernandez. He was so bad, everybody saw it all year.
Beginning of the end of his career when they start popping up with the K zone.
And he missed 3 in a row to Wyatt Langford, which I think was the straw that broke the camel's back. He finally said, they said, you've got to go. That's a Rex Hudler. You've got to go to Angel Hernandez. But as far as the pitch clock goes, I'm in favor of that. I do not like the extra innings, man on second. I wish they would play the 10th and 11th inning regular, and then the 12th go to the extra man or the ghost runner. Talk about when we were growing up, that's how we used to play, right? Ghost runner on second, and now that's kind of a joke for some old timers, say this is the ghost runner extra innings. Overall, I'm okay with most of the rules.
We're going to quickly move back into the interview with Coach Donnie Hillerman at North Central Missouri College, head baseball coach. In this segment, he talks about the new Russ Derry Practice Facility, use of that facility in developing team, spirit, and skill development.
The biggest factor is finances for these kids. The least amount of cost they have to come out of pocket. If you got more scholarship, you're going to win more battles. Having that facility, though, if we're on par with somebody that we're competing with, that can be the difference maker. I really think it's going to help us a lot just in how we prepare, too. We want to just prepare our guys from a practice standpoint, getting more done, more accomplished, more efficiently, effectively in that space is going to be huge. Also, we have clubhouses attached to it, and that we really work hard for team building. It wasn't such a difficult thing to do when I first started, 30-some years ago or whatever, but it's more and more important now to do team builders. And by that, we always have our team broken into squads, and then we rotate the squads a little bit so they change, so they get on squads with different teammates. And we're constantly doing competitive things with our squads. We went down and we had a competition down in Oklahoma on a farm where we had a river in there, and they had some SUV things to run around and play games and do stuff. We had competitions. The final competition came down to, it was about 40 degrees outside. They had done a run that morning, and they'd done some wall sits and some other physical challenges, and they'd done some ping pong and darts and different games. And it's just a lot of fun. It kind of brings the team together. The final thing was, for every guy that went in the river, they got a point. It turns out we had 20-some guys in the river before that was over with on a 40-degree day. And you talk about a lot of fun, just memories and special things like that. That's part of it. Talking with Mike the other day, one of the things that we said is that when it's all said and done, most guys, when they reflect back on their career, the thing they remember the most and they miss the most when you get away from the game is the camaraderie between you and the other teammates. Definitely makes you a stronger club overall when you can build that team.
I think there's just a value in being a college athlete, time management, leadership skills, team building skills. And I assume you see a lot of those same things, the discipline.
Absolutely. I really think our job is to teach the sport, but also develop the people. You can't forget that you're teaching, you're coaching people first, not the skill first. We're always monitoring and watching the personal growth of each individual and trying to help them. For us, it's so important that they have a good experience in general. You don't want someone in your program. You always want the best players, but you also want players who are happy. Your program is not going to be a productive place if you have disgruntled people in it. We want all the kids involved in our program to have a good experience. When you get that right, good culture, and I think we really have a good culture in our club right now, I think they feel more pressure to work for their teammates than they do for the coaches and for themselves.
Okay, guys, give us an example of team building and chemistry in your past as coaches came together and really made an impression on you with young people.
Well, I can tell you that I've had a lot of good basketball teams at both schools that I was at. One of the common denominators that we always had was what we did in the summer, more than what we did during the season. Because what you try to develop in the summers, yes, you want to build fundamentals, you want to build skills, you want to put in whatever defense and offense, but you want to get away from your facility. You want to go to a team camp. You want to spend all night somewhere, go out to a restaurant, have them go see a movie together, whatever it is. When they start seeing each other less as competition and more as friends, in high school, generally they all grow up together. But even if you grow up together doesn't mean you don't know a lot about each other's, maybe some personal stuff or background stuff. And when that stuff comes to light and you see a person as instead of just a teammate or a basketball player, things change. And then, just like Coach Hillerman said, instead of playing for the coach, which I always wanted to play hard for me, I was really just look like you've been coached, girls. That's all I really asked of you. They start playing for each other, and they start lifting weights for each other, and they start trying to be the best for each other. And that's how you develop a culture, really a special season, almost irrelevant of the wins and losses, because you spend so much time together, especially during basketball season. My gosh, it's so long. People develop deeper friendships and different relationships, and even between players and coaches and players, and that's what makes it special. I never really had to be a real rah-rah guy and yell at them and motivate them, because we tried to do enough stuff where they would motivate themselves. Now, that doesn't always work. Not every group of kids that works with, but my experience is that's kind of the way it is. Treat them like adults. They act like adults. They start treating each other with respect. They start treating referees with respect, coaches with respect, and then you kind of get a nice building block for your season.
I will defer to Coach Upton on basketball, although I'm a basketball guy and I had some great basketball experiences at Trenton and coaching there. But also had the challenge of starting the softball program back in 2000 at Trenton. Trenton never had girls softball as a high school sport. And that was a neat experience to take whatever we had, I think about 17, 18 girls, and start something brand new from scratch. Everything we did, we were learning together. We were going through it together. We were losing a lot of games together, but boy, every time we got that first win or that first home run in school history or first RBI, really brought us together, and we were trying to build to something bigger and better than us, and it has to start somewhere. And I think Trenton softball has really grown over the last 24 years now into something special, and it started with just those 17 or 18 girls that took on the challenge to start something new.
Kids are still kids. They want to be coached. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves, and they're usually willing to put in the work to be better, and I think that's a good sign for our society and for our communities. And sometimes I think something that gets lost. We've talked about this a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about the facility, the Russ Derry Practice Facility for softball and baseball at North Central Missouri College, and how that's evolving. A little local baseball history. Russ Derry was from Princeton, Missouri. He was a Major League Baseball player in the 40s. New York Yankees, 1944. 45, Philadelphia Athletics, 1946, and St. Louis Cardinals in 49. And in 1949, he led the International League with 49 home runs and is a member of the International League Hall of Fame. No little thing back in the day when everybody was playing baseball. So that's where the name of the Russ Derry facility, and he's the namesake for that. In this segment, we talked to Coach Hillerman about this facility and how it's useful for the building of the program. Tell us about the Russ Derry facility, the dimensions of it, what you're able to do within it, what kind of tools are in there. For somebody that hadn't walked in that building, it was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Okay. The ceiling height is pretty high, which allows us, so the space to get some arc on a ball, so work a little bit of a fly ball type thing. It is about 82, I think, across by 120 something in length. The last 10 foot or so, we have a mat on the floor. It's kind of like a weight room mat. And over in that area, we do a lot of our weights, our bands, our plyo stuff, the balls, and different training that we do resistance-wise for pitchers. The other 110 feet or so is turfed, so you can do ground balls and baseball activities on that. We have 4 cages that pull across, and they'll give you 70-plus feet across, so you can get like a live pitcher throwing to a hitter, and they're 12 to 15 foot wide. So we can get a live arm onto a live batter and hit inside the cage. Overall, we can get distance throws that would mimic the distance we'd be throwing in a game on the field. It just gives us that space to work. We utilize that for ground balls, defensive things, fly ball, situational, a lot of batting practice, pitching practice, those kind of things. We also do our plyometric and agility type trainings on there where we're doing, maybe we got boxes and hurdles out there. We've got a sled that they're pushing and pulling, weighted sled. Just a lot of speed, agility, crossing over center, and a lot of dynamic movement to build core strength and explosiveness and that kind of training in there as well. So there's a lot of stuff. Plus then you got the clubhouse area where their lockers and that space to kind of build team. And
it's come a long way from when I was a kid, and you've been over and touched your toes a couple times and ran across the field once, and we're ready.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot more to it and a lot of commitment that the athletes really have to make.
And like you said, that creates that discipline factor, which is was going to serve them well in life, regardless of whether they end up in professional sports somewhere, or if it's in the work field or wherever.
Well, Coach Hillerman, thank you for spending some time with us. I appreciate you letting me kind of hang around yesterday at the clinic. Just would recommend if you're in the Trenton area and you have the opportunity to go over and see the new facility. It's outstanding. It's impressive. It's bigger than you think it would be when you walk into it. And the sound of baseballs pinging around off aluminum bats and hitting mitts with pitchers is a good sound, echoing reverb around that facility. So I would recommend that. I want to thank Coach Hillerman. Really appreciated his opening up about his passion for the game of baseball and what he's trying to do. Has a strong feel for what he's trying to teach, and we appreciate his time for the podcast. Enjoyed that baseball discussion. So now one sports franchise that is growing exponentially is the Kansas City Chiefs football team. 2 weeks ago, I took my daughter to a Chiefs training camp practice, and as with most dad-daughter experiences, Dad learned a few things. Recently, we took a trip over to St. Joseph, Missouri, to Missouri Western State University, to see a Chiefs training camp practice. There's probably 5,000 people there. I'm guessing about 4,900 of them were wearing Chiefs gear, including us. But there's always that one guy. There was a guy in a Josh Allen Buffalo Bills jersey. On the way to practice, I asked my daughter what she thought, what she was looking forward to, and what was the key for her day. Who's your favorite Chiefs player?
Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce. Why would that be?
Well, don't make it seem like I only like him because of Taylor Swift. I've liked him ever since I started becoming a Chiefs fan. And then I also liked Taylor Swift, but they weren't even dating. They didn't even know each other. And then they started dating, and it just, like, my worlds collided.
Your worlds collided, huh?
Yeah.
As you can imagine, it's not the first time I've been dad shamed. Kendall set me straight on her reasons for Chiefs' loyalties to Travis Kelce, which do in fact predate his relationship with one Taylor Swift. But I do know it's made it exciting for her, and the TikTok videos never end. Now, before Travis showed up on the scene, Isaiah Pacheco came down the hill for practice. He's a very popular figure, and fans at the barricade were yelling for Pop.
Go, Pop. Go, Pop!
One of the last people to come down the hill, Travis Kelce, without the goatee, without the beard, just with the mustache, looking a little bit younger. And as cool as she tried to be, my daughter was one of the most excited people at the barricade.
Oh
My God, Dad, I'm going to lose it.
Kelsey! Kelsey! Kelsey!
Well, that's the closest I've ever been to Travis Kelce, but that's also the closest connection I've ever had to Taylor Swift, so yay me.
It was a great dad-daughter day. We moved around a lot, watched the practice from different vantage points. It's also a good way to see the Chiefs without spending a lot of money. If you go to Chiefs.com training, you'll see the options for up to 6 tickets, no cost, $5 for parking. There are tickets available for the remaining practices that run through the middle of August. If you want some autographs, they got a pro shop, but those white footballs were coming off the shelves. For myself, got to see a Missouri legend, actually 2 Missouri legends. Andy Hill from Trenton, Missouri, assistant coach for special teams for the Chiefs, was there with his old boss, Gary Pinkel. It's fun to see those two walking up the hill. Talked to my friend of the program, Brent Martin, KFEQ news director in St. Joseph. Says that the Chiefs like having training camp there. Andy Reid particularly likes it. They've had about 5,000 people per day, and that represents about a 30% bump since last year. The Chiefs just keep getting more popular. If you got a free day before the 15th, look into it. Go over and show out your fandom. There's a lot of excitement as the Chiefs try to three-peat. What are you looking for in this upcoming season? What's got you excited?
I'm looking forward to the receiving core. The Chiefs organization obviously wanted to improve there. They have some speed. They've got some burners back, and that'll stretch the field and open things up for Travis and Isaiah Pacheco. And so just giving Mahomes more weapons, use that guy while you've got him, special talent, and our window's probably 3 or 4 more years, maybe 5, and give that guy all the weapons that he asked for.
He said he didn't have fun last year. We want him to have some fun this year.
Right. He was really limited last year as a different-looking offense, not being able to stretch the field. Defenses can kind of lock in and take some things away in the middle of the field when you can't stretch the field. And now they've got a couple burners that can really beat you deep if you're not careful, which defenses have to recognize, and that opens everything up for an offense.
Oh, I think Patrick had fun last year. He won the Super Bowl. Being an old defensive coach first, I'm a little bit fascinated to see how the defense turns around, especially in their defensive backfield. I think losing Willie Gay may be a little bit of a difference maker just because of his speed and athleticism. But I think if the Chiefs can figure out how to have a top 10 or 12 defense, their offense doesn't have to do much more than it did last year, and we can be in the same position again. But if that defense drops, down the 20s or 25s, then you have to rely on all that speed. Last year was a complete different season watching the Chiefs because you just always before is like you didn't care if you was down 14 points. That was nothing. We're good. Last year, if you're down 14 points, you're like, we're in trouble. I think we're going to see an increase in the offense, and I'm excited about that. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a pullback in the defense. I'm not so excited about that, but I think they'll still can be that nice in the middle ground where our defense is good enough to keep good teams at bay, and Patrick's got more weapons. And so now we can score 30 points and win a game 30-27.
We got spoiled for a few years there.
That's
30
right.
points was the minimum. Okay, let's close this out. I want to thank Chris and Brian for our lively discussion today. Thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Great as always.
I want to thank Coach Donnie Hillerman for his time and thoughtful discussion about growing the game of baseball. I got to thank Travis Kelsey for rewarding my daughter's devotion to him with that Travis energy on and off the field. And I want to thank you for listening to our 4th episode of Show Me Sports Legacies. Follow, like, subscribe on whatever podcast providers you use, Apple, Spotify, and many others. We'll look forward to seeing you next time, and thank you for listening.